My Lords, question for short debate. Low levels of rape case prosecutions. Baroness Jones of Moulscombe.
My Lords, I'd like to thank in advance all the noble lords who are speaking today, and I'm going to be listening very closely to the two former Met Commissioners that we have, as I think they probably not only understand problems, but also know exactly where the solutions lie, and I hope that the government will be listening to them as closely as I will. So we all know that our country is failing rape victims, mainly women, not exclusively, but mainly women. And I could stand here all day and quote figures about that show how bad things are now, or even how bad they were a decade ago, or even how bad they were 2, 3, 4 decades ago. Misogyny is not new, and that's the root of most of these rapes. There's been times when women could be priests or even gods. But extreme misogyny arose in Assyria 3,500 years ago and brought it into politics and into religion. I could talk about the way that young working class girls in Rotherham were not believed and were ignored. We could explore the allegations of police collusion and corruption with links to local drug gangs, or I could go back a decade and talk about the failures of the police when the Yorkshire Ripper was killing sex workers. There's the scandal of Jimmy Savile operating as a sexual predator in plain sight, with powerful friends in the BBC and Downing Street. Or Warboys, the taxi driver whom the police believe had 100 victims, some of whom had reported being assaulted before he was finally caught. Each of these cases has common threads of women and girls either not being believed or fearing that they wouldn't be believed. There's the half-hearted investigations of women who do report, and the professional scepticism of CPS, Crown Prosecution staff, about whether a jury is going to convict. There's the character assassination of survivors and the intrusive exploration of their personal lives by the authorities who are meant to be supporting their getting justice. So these high-profile cases open up the public debate, but those cases are the merest fraction of the lived experience of hundreds of thousands of women and girls who have reported or not reported, gone to trial or tried to, and then given up in despair. What is striking in reading through the library of previous reports, inquiries and ministerial speeches are the repeated themes and recommendations. They tend to broadly agree with the existing policy relating to the investigation and prosecution of rape, and then state that this policy is not being properly implemented. These kinds of failures are long-standing. It can feel as though the repeated commissioning of these reviews and inspections is a way for government and other authorities to indicate concern while never following through with the action and resources needed to make change. Now, I am absolutely positive that this Labour government will do better than that. From the 1980s onwards, we had a slow but positive shift in the way that police and Crown prosecutors handled rape cases, from the setting up of rape investigation rooms and the swift collection of forensic evidence, to a merit-based approach to prosecution that looked at evidence rather than second-guessing what a jury might or might not decide. Coming out of the scandal of grooming gangs in several northern towns, Sir Keir Starmer, the then head of the Crown Prosecution Service, argued that it wasn't a question of the victim's behaviour or criminal record, it was whether or not the crime had happened. He said, if the yardstick traditionally used by prosecutors for evaluating the credibility of a victim in other cases were used without adaptation in cases of sexual exploitation, the outcome would potentially be a category of vulnerable victims left unprotected by the criminal law. And he was absolutely right. These changes, combined with the Me Too campaign and a series of high-profile historical scandals, led to a huge increase in the reporting of rape cases. This was a success, but it came just as austerity led to the slow collapse of the criminal justice system. The result has been a disaster for rape victims, rape survivors, who have been seriously let down by an overstretched judicial system that has responded in the worst of all possible ways. It's a system that promises justice, but actually delivers delays and failure. The numbers of rapes recorded by the police increased steadily since the 1980s, but tripled between 2014 and 2018, reaching their highest ever volume. The number of reported rapes being successfully prosecuted has, however, dropped from 25% in 1981 to 1 or 2% in recent years. Instead of our society recognising the scale of a hidden scandal and putting resources into achieving justice when hundreds of thousands of people started reporting this horrendous but regular, everyday crime. What the last government did instead was to cut police, cut lawyers, and cut police time. The Crown prosecutors quietly dropped the merit-based approach and ration cases going forwards based on a Ladbrokes betting shop analysis of the odds of a jury convicting the alleged assailant. I'm going to be very careful about naming the person I believe responsible for that, because I'm not sure if I have cover from being in the House of Lords or not from prosecution. The solution is more resources, and that means making it a priority within the judicial system. No more delaying trials for a year or more, so the rape survivor gives up all hope of justice and drops out from emotional exhaustion. As long as rape is a crime that people think they can get away with, they will do it. Does this government or any government want rape legalised? Because the year-on-year failures make that appear near enough the outcome of austerity. Yeah. The other thing the government can do is education and changing the culture. This is incredibly important, and I feel that this particular avenue of recovery has not been explored. In France, Gisèle Pellicot has done this and changed the culture of shame from being all on the survivors to the shame being directed at all the men who raped her and all those who colluded and all those who didn't actually report to the police what was happening. So we need ministers to get behind survivors and make it clear that rape is not just about grooming gangs or spiked drinks or dodgy taxi drivers or even police officers. All of those need dealing with, but distressingly, most sexual assaults are about familiar and comfortable environments and people that you actually know. And therefore, education is absolutely basic to sorting out this problem. And I do look forward very much to hearing what the Noble Lord the Minister is going to say in reply. And if you could pick up this point about education, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.